This was the dumbest purchase I've ever made. It doesn't make sound, it doesn't fix your mix, and it won't impress the fart huffers over on Gearsluts. And it sure as hell won't help you write better music. It just sits there, silently, mocking you, until you actually need your studio to work. Then it becomes the smartest gear decision you've ever made. It cost me $3,000, has no mojo, no tubes, no tone knobs, and absolutely no business being this awesome. And yeah, I would buy it again in a heartbeat. Let's flocking go! Let's rewind a bit. Patch bays, believe it or not, didn't start in studios. They came out of the telephone exchanges back in the early 1900s. If you've ever seen old footage of operators manually plugging in calls with cables, that was a patch bay. The same logic can be applied. Take signal from point A, route it to point B without tearing the whole damn system apart. Studios just borrowed the idea because it solved the same problem: signal flexibility. Want to run your vocal mic through a Neve pre into an LA2A and then into a tape machine on channel 7? Patch it. Want to reamp something? Patch it. Want to split a signal to 2 different chains and A/B them? Patch it. It made studios modular long before plugins and drag and drop interfaces ever existed. But here's the wild part. The patch bay is still one of the most overlooked tools in the modern home studio. And why? Because it doesn't have any glowy things. It doesn't have fancy LEDs, it doesn't run on DSP, and it won't make your friends go, "Sick rig, bro," when they walk into your IKEA shelf-filled bedroom studio. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but hey, that's where most of us are these days. So it gets shoved to the bottom of the shopping list, right next to the acoustic treatment and power conditioning you so desperately flocking need. Stuff that's in the technically important but still kind of boring category. So it often gets ignored. Meanwhile, the guy with the 14 virtual tape plugins and a tube preamp he doesn't understand is still crawling behind his desk, covered in dust bunnies, pulling out cables every time he wants to reroute his vocal chain. I know, because I was that guy for 2 flocking decades. And yeah, I get it, a decent patch-based setup, especially one that doesn't suck, isn't gonna be cheap. You can blow a couple $1,000 on just the DB25 to XLR snakes. But you know what's way more expensive? Wasting hundreds of hours over the course of your career crawling around in frustration trying to figure out why there's still no sound coming out of your monitors. Again. Now, don't tell me you've never experienced that. So once I got a proper patch bay, and I mean a real one, not a Behringer wall of grounding problems, it suddenly changed everything. I could A/B preamps on the fly, I could try out new compressors in seconds, reamp without needing to pull half the studio apart. And that brings us to this monster, the Flock Patch. This isn't just a patch bay, this is what happens when you take a century-old idea and give it a brain and a USB cable. It's like somebody looked at a 1940s telephone exchange and said, "Cool idea, but what if it didn't suck to use?" It's time for this studio to get flocked. So why the flock does something like the patch even exist? Simple, because traditional patch bays, while incredibly useful, are still stuck in the crom-damn Stone Age. They're basically a glorified wall of holes. A wall of holes that expects you to remember what's plugged in where, with no presets, no undo button, and certainly no sympathy. And you better hope that you labeled everything correctly or you're gonna be in for a world of hurt. Now, don't get me wrong, an analog patch bay will save your ass if you've got the patience of a Buddhist monk and the organizational skills of a nuclear submarine tech. But for the rest of us, they're a massive pain in the balls. Enter the Flock Patch. When this thing first came out, it was like somebody finally said, "Hey, what if a patch bay didn't feel like you were trying to program a punch card computer from the late 1920s? And sure enough, boom, a fully digital, fully recallable, software-controlled patch bay that can route 64 channels of analog audio however the hell you want with the click of a mouse. No more crawling behind racks, no more checking your notes and praying you got it right, no more hoping your patch cables don't short out when you do patch something. Just click, route, done! And yeah, I get it. Some of you are already clutching your wallets going, dude, how much is this gonna cost me? Well, unlike a night out with your mom, this is pretty damn expensive. Now, I'm not gonna lie and pretend that this thing is budget friendly. It's not. It's $3,000 for the unit, and that's before you factor in the cost of cables. And if you're just gonna blindly buy off-the-shelf DB25 snakes for everything, congratulations, you just threw your money in the garbage and then lit it on fire. But, and this is the important part, there is a way to do it smarter, a workaround, one that saves you a crap ton of money if you're willing to get your hands dirty. We'll get to that in just a minute. Here's the truth. The flock patch is the kind of gear that completely redefines how your studio works. Once you've had one, going back to a regular patch bay feels like trading in your smartphone for 2 tin cans and a string. It takes everything that sucked about analog routing, the cable mess, the labeling chaos, the where the hell is my signal detective work, and just eliminates it. You want to try a new mic pre on a snare? Click. You want to AB2 compressors? Click. You want to run them in series? Click that too. If you want to reroute your entire vocal chain mid-session without breaking your workflow? Click. And yes, it even remembers your routing per session. You can save presets, switch between different setups, and never again wonder what's connected where. It's not just a patch bay, it is a full-blown recallable analog matrix. Whoa. Suddenly, your home studio starts behaving like a big studio. One where you can spend less time troubleshooting and more time chugging your low string and pretending that it's songwriting. So if you're serious about your workflow and tired of cable spaghetti and wasted hours, this might just be your new best friend. Unless, of course, you're a drummer. In that case, be sure to ask your mom how to turn it on. Now let's talk about the part that really makes you question your life choices, the cables. If you think a $3,000 digital patch bay is expensive, wait until you start shopping for the DB25 to XLR snakes, because they ain't cheap, and they sure as hell ain't small. These things are bulky as hell, heavy as sin, and you're gonna need at least 10 feet minimum. Realistically, 15 to 20 feet just to reach the back of your racks. Congratulations, you've just spent more on cabling than most YouTubers spend on their entire interface. But guess what? This is the greatest, cheapest analog audio snake ever conceived by mankind. Looks just like a cheap networking cable, right? Wrong. Oh, is that for Dante? No, it's analog. 4 glorious channels of analog audio on a flocking network cable. Originally designed to carry digital signals across stupidly long distances in the middle of electromagnetic chaos, these cables twist each pair at a different ratio to cancel out noise. Turns out, they're absolutely killer for analog audio. So yeah, while everybody else is blowing their budget on overpriced snakes and spaghetti monsters, you can run clean analog audio across your whole studio with a $10 cable you found at Home Depot. You can even get the cable in a bulk box of 1,000 feet, and if you're willing to put in the time and make your own ends, you can save a fortune. Or you do what I did, go down to your local discount computer store, you know the one that sells the shitty gear that you'd never buy in a million years, and get this stuff already assembled for dirt freaking cheap. And if you want to run phantom power, you get shielded Cat 5 or Cat 6. Just make sure it's got a metal connector. That's it. And for breakouts, the standard is called AES-72, and a bunch of different manufacturers offer them. I've got some killer ones from Thomann that have a 1-foot pigtail already attached, that's male or female, and you can get those for a whopping $29. I've also got some Nutric AES-72 boxes that are truly awesome. They cost a lot more money, but they also send or receive, which is pretty freaking amazing. I've also messed around with the Lix brand from Amazon. They're pretty good and they have a 3-foot cable, which is awesome, but they're not AES-72 compliant, which can lead to issues if you mix and match different brands, because suddenly the mic you have on channel 3 winds up on channel 1. That sort of thing, lots of fun, I don't recommend. Adam Hall and Hosa both have solutions up for offer, but I haven't tested those to see if they're AES-72 compliant. And if you're gonna go DB25 to DB25, because I know I've got enough of that in here, that's for sure, get yourself some connectors from Catherine North Electronics in my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario. These used to be made by Wardbeck Systems in Toronto, but they closed during the pandemic. Fortunately, Catherine North picked up the slack and has been making some killer connectors over the last few years, and I've got them all over my Neve. So being the kind of guy who'd rather spend my money on literally anything other than overpriced DB25 snakes, I built some custom Cat 5 snakes and wired the flock patch into this beautiful Neve console. And let me tell you, it was one big flaming flocking nightmare. So got my returns all kind of figured out, and I just started bundling and I realized I forgot one, so need to start that again. But I got all the cables stretched out here, so that way I'm not going to run into problems when I start putting them all together into a giant bundle. This is going to get really cool really soon. And we're finally good to go. This whole thing is assembled. Got my ins, got my outs, everything's flagged with cables, so I know exactly what to hook up to where. And hopefully, this is all just going to clean up a whole bunch of mess behind the console. So if I ever got to get back there, I don't have to worry about tripping over stuff. Everything's going to be nicely routed and out of the way. Now, because the flock only has 64 points, I had to make choices, strategic ones. So no, I can't patch the entire console. The flock is on the inserts for channels 9 through 16, the main mix bus, and the first 4 tracks of the 8 tracks, so I can slap a compressor across drum buses and cool stuff like that. But now I can throw this whole rack of gear anywhere I want into any part of the signal chain I want and route it however I want. I can even throw in all this extra stuff I've got under the desk here. I want to show you the power of this system, why this works so great, and why it really does forge some creativity for the end user here. So this is the mix that I'm using right now. This was from the demo I did a few weeks back on the brand new Made in UK Celestion Vintage 30s, which are just freaking amazing. Yeah, if you want to get that guitar sound, I've got a free download link for an impulse response I made of those speakers. Grab it today. It's absolutely free, and it's my way of saying thank you so much for being awesome and watching the show. So what I got going on here is these 8 channels I have set to the patch. I've got a couple of submixes here as well as my master bus. And I can literally just take this whole system here, drag a drop, throw it in however the hell I want, and basically put anything anywhere. And that is just freaking amazing. I've got all this rack over here all set up for it. So let me show you what I mean. So first and foremost, we're going to check out my room mics. That's a Stam 1178. I can just punch that out. That's Stam's recreation of the 1178 compressor, which is just freaking amazing. But I've also got a couple of Stam 76s here as well in the rack, and those are like dual monos, and those are freaking cool as well. So it's just different flavors of compression depending on what I want. It's pretty subtle. I can hear a bit of a difference, but we can do some really crazy stuff here, like run the 2 into each other if I want. Like, okay, that might be a little insane. Let's take those out. But I've also got this awesome Game Lab Empress EQ. Ooh. Gain Lab, for the record, makes like some of the best tube gear on the planet. I've got their Dictator compressor. I've got their Empress EQ, which is like their modern take on a Pultec, which is just freaking amazing. You just really can't go wrong with that. But what I got over here on the guitars is a personal favorite of mine. Gotta give a great big shout out to Mr. Michael Wagner for sharing this little tidbit. So here's the raw tracks. We're gonna kick this EQ on. Now that is the single greatest guitar equalizer ever created, according to Michael Wagner. And Michael did a lot of my favorite records from the 80s. He was all over the Dawkins stuff, that kind of stuff, those legendary George Lynch tones. Yeah, we're probably going through one of these, which is a UREI 530 EQ. It just adds a little bit of zing onto the guitars in a really cool way. I actually got it from my good friend Lasse Lammert when I visited him in Lubeck, Germany a couple of years ago. But the cool thing about the flock is I can change out EQs at will. Throw the Empress on there. Ooh, let's try that together. Try this right here. That's pretty damn cool as well. The other thing is I can actually swap those around if I want. I can just, I can put the Uri into the Empress now and see. Let's see what that does. That might be kind of neat. Of course, on my vocal right now, I've got my distressor going on. You can see it there, but I've also got patched in the Eventide. And I did a demo on that a while back. That's this compressor right here. Eventide makes probably one of the greatest voice-over compressors ever. The crazy thing is I can put those together and then do something insane like that, which I'm probably never going to use, but I can pop that out And if I so choose, I can probably, let me see what happens if I drop the Empress onto that. So mono only here for a sec, move that over. And there we go. There's the Empress. So it was originally designed for a stereo parrot. I just moved it onto a mono channel just like that. Super cool flexibility. I really can't say enough good things about this system. Now, I've also got this on my drum bus, and I don't actually have a compressor going on the actual mix, just the drums. I'm trying to do something along the lines of what they did on the Black Album, because Hetfield didn't want any compression on his guitars. So I got this idea from JP Henry, of course. Please go check out JP's show. It's freaking amazing. So that's just my drum bus today. But I could throw this on the entire mix if I so choose. Move that over here. I gotta bring the guitars way down. Actually, I gotta say, I really do like that just on the drums. I'm really starting to dig that kind of sound. Let me do one last thing here. I was just thinking about this. What if I took that 78 and dropped that onto the main mix bus? Let's see what we got now. This will be really nuts. Okay, that did not work at all. But I just want to show off just how flexible this thing is. It's pretty flocking amazing in my opinion. So what do I think? Let's break it down into the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. You've got unholy routing power. If you want to try your kick mics through a 1073 and then instantly flip to an API with a different compressor, boom, 1-2 clicks, you're done. It's like playing Tetris with analog gear, but with cheat codes. You can build whatever chain you want. Flip through vocal chains like Tinder profiles. Try 5 different preamps, 3 EQs, and a different DI box just to see what you really like today. This isn't just better workflow, this is studio domination. If your patch bay doesn't come with its own war cry, then it's not trying hard enough. My favorite part, a pair of front panel inputs, which means you can plug in anything that magically shows up at the studio, especially if you have a client who's insisting on bringing in whatever wonder box he simply must have on his record. You can now hook this up without crawling behind your rack like a goblin. Seriously, why doesn't every patch bay do this? Because most companies hate you. That's why. The bad, it's a computer accessory in disguise. You boot up your studio, you hit play, no sound. Oh yeah, right, forgot to power on the flock. Yet again. Congratulations, you just bought a $3,000 mute button with a blue light that's only slightly less bright than the super laser used on the Death Star. Seriously, it's so bright I had to put freaking tape in front of it just to make it bearable. The software user interface is a glitchy divorce waiting to happen. Yes, it works, but it's not what I call graceful. There's no way for it to load up and stay minimized. You have to either load it manually and minimize it, or have it load on boot and still minimize it manually every single flocking time! Otherwise, it's just muting your audio. Why can't we just have it load up and stay the flock out of the way like every other audio interface does? Oh yeah, and then there's the you can't shut it down yet warning. Yes! I know the software is still running. Will you please flock off so I can just shut down my flocking computer without having a flocking conversation with the flocking thing? Look, I get it. You want to know if I should save the changes that I made, but that's not all the time. Please give us the option to turn off the flocking nag screen. Please! If I shut down, it's because I want to shut it down. And if I forget to save, I am perfectly okay with it being my fault. Just shut the flocking computer down. Too much power makes you stupid. Look, I used to just plug in a mic and go. Now I've got all these freaking options, and then I wind up playing with stuff instead of recording. Option paralysis is a real thing, and if you're not smart, you're gonna fall prey to that. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. Remember, we are supposed to be making music, not dicking around with different audio configurations. If you got a signal chain that works, do that first. If it crashes, you're flocked. There's no passive failover, no safety net. If the software crashes or the unit bricks, guess what? You just turned your $3,000 audio switcher into a $3,000 desk ornament. Meanwhile, your old school patch bay is just sitting there like, I might be dumb, but at least I know how to show up for work. And now, the ugly. It's $3,000 for only 64 points. Yeah, that is $3,000 for the entry-level model. And once you start counting every output on your converter, every insert, send, and return, and that one input you only use when the guitarist wants to experiment, you realize that you're already out of I/O. Scaling up, hope you like living in a van. I'm gonna be honest here, I really want the 128-point version, but that is $9,000. As in, you could buy a used car or maybe pay 2 weeks rent in Los Angeles. Or you can go halfway on an API console, but hey, at least you can route more stuff that you still can't afford to buy. And then of course, there's the audiophile whining. Yeah, some golden ear forum trolls will swear that they can hear a difference, but it's unconfirmed whether those are the same guys who once picked a Behringer ADA 8000 over some Lavery Blue computers a few years ago and still deny reality to this day. If you can hear some kind of signal degradation through this thing, hey, you know what? Your ears are way better than mine, and I hope you're making an awful lot of money with them. In my own experience, I haven't heard a degradation, but then again, I'm not claiming to have superhuman hearing. So, what's the verdict? I love it. I bought it with my own money. Sweetwater gave me a bit of a discount, but it still wasn't even close to being cheap. But no regrets. Now, would I prefer the 128-point version? Yes. But I'll live with what I got. Now, I'm gonna be honest, it's not cheap. At $3,000, it's definitely not for everybody. But if your studio looks like a spaghetti monster made with a rack of 500 series modules, then maybe the Flock patch is going to save you hours of replugging, tracing cables, and swearing at your past self. It lets you get creative without rewiring your entire studio every time you get an idea. And that is a serious edge over a traditional patch bay. If that sounds like something you need in your life, you can grab one over at Sweetwater. Follow the links in the description and tell them I sent you. Or don't. Maybe you like crawling behind your rack with a flashlight between your teeth and a mouthful of dust bunnies while trying to remember which one of your 47 black XLR cables goes to the drum parallel bus. I guess it's still more fun than listening to your 14-minute gent epic. Feels like trading in your smartphone for smartphones, not smartphone. There. In fact, wait until you stop. If you think a third... fuck! Looks like a cheap analog... Fuck! Glorious channels of analog on it. Fuck.